This is Tabletop Weekly, and we're the partners of Solarian Games. I'm Jason.
And I'm Peter.
And we are joined this week by Derek White and Than Gibson of Darkspace. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
All right, so hey, this week's stories. Is Wizards of the Coast ripping off Traveler? Goodman Games takes on the Dark Tower. Richard Garriott, that's Lord British, considers a tabletop version of Ultima. Blades 68, a groovy spy thriller. And, of course, we're going to talk about Darkspace RPG and the new Void Echoes zine. All right, so hey, let's hop right into the first story, and that is Wizards of the Coast ripping off Traveler? So, backstory here, Wizards of the Coast is making a new sci-fi tabletop RPG. This is going to be their first, for Wizards, this will be their first non-D&D RPG since Gamma World, if you don't count what they did before they bought Dungeons & Dragons, when they had Peter's own RPG, when Wizards was still, little baby imaginary, tiny.
Not
tiny
this
little...
Peter, other Peter, the famous.
Yeah, Peter Atkinson, sorry. So when
not
Wizards
the little Peter, the big Peter.
The big Peter, yeah.
I should point out that Derek is a Methodist minister.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah.
That's never mattered to you before, Jason.
Not when it comes to your... Let's move on. So when Wizards started, it was Peter Atkinson was working at Boeing, and he had his own RPG that he was making. But that, in the grand scheme of things, we can say this is the first... Whatever. It's a big deal. So Exodus didn't start as a TTRPG. It actually started, it's already about to come out as a video game. So this is Wizards doing video games through another studio. But it is all based on I don't know if it's a series of novels, but it's based on actual novels by, and I'm going to get this right, and if I look it up, here we go, The Archimedes Engine by Peter F. Hamilton. So it's a whole thing, but it's getting some attention in online RPG groups because here they have this game called Exodus, okay, but in Exodus you become the Traveler. And of course, what is the science fiction granddaddy of them all when it comes to TTRPGs? It's Traveler, right?
Yeah.
And then there's other little things like, in Traveler there is a group called the Aslan. I think they're the Aslan dynasty. And in Exodus, Become the Traveler, there's also an Aslan dynasty. So there's some. Oh, look at that! It looks like it's all the same thing. But have any of you all ever heard of Betteridge's Law of Headlines?
Yeah.
Betteridge's Law of Headlines states that any headline that you can end with a question mark will be answered by the word no.
Oh God! Okay.
And so I'm going to answer this. I'm going to answer our own headline. Is WotC ripping off Traveler? No, I don't think it is. And let me give you some of the evidence that it's not. First of all, Traveler. It's not like that's a word that's never been used before.
Right.
They should have known, but I think the word Traveler showed up in the novel before it showed up in the game. And Aslan, that's just from anybody? Anybody know where Aslan's from?
C.S.
Lion,
Lewis,
Witch...
Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Exactly. And that's just because Aslan is the Turkish word for lion. Mm-hmm. So there you have it. But it is still pretty cool. It's probably, I don't think there's any ripoffs happening here, just some kind of fun coincidences. But I did look up a little bit more about what the actual book is about, and this sounds really good, to the point that I really hope Wizards doesn't mess this up, because the story of the book, I'll give you just an overview. So Exodus in the book, it takes place in a star cluster called the Centauri cluster, located about 14,000 light years from Earth. And in this book, Earth became totally uninhabitable sometime between the 22nd and 24th centuries, and generation ships were sent out. So this book takes place some 43,000 years in the future. And there's no light, there's no faster than light travel. Everything in it is just the physics we know about today. In this, one group gets there first. And once they find this place, the Centauri cluster, they send out what's called a green signal across the Milky Way to call the other generation ships back to them. But that itself takes tens of thousands of years, because we're talking about normal relativity, or what's the word for non-science fiction travel? Relativistic. Relativistic speed.
Yeah.
So by the time all the others get there, it's been tens of thousands of years. Now the original settlers of the Centauri cluster have evolved into advanced post-humans known as celestials, with lifespans of centuries and the ability to transfer their souls into other bodies on death and total control of genetic engineering. They're basically they see themselves as gods. Mm-hmm. And so when these newly arrived humans show up, they're just, these puny little, who are you? They give them, here, you can have the worst worlds that you can stay on. And in this book, the heroes are these travelers, ordinary humans who have managed to get a hold of a spacecraft and can legally travel between the systems, and I suppose are fighting back against the Celestials. And in it, it's everybody's limited to sublight speeds. So relativity becomes a huge thing. Two of the main characters in the book are twins, and they end up being 30 years apart in the book. So,
right, yeah.
I mean, Peter, I know you love hard sci-fi. So,
I do.
I love the idea that we're going to do a TTRPG that doesn't have faster than light speeds.
Yeah, I love good hard sci-fi. Like I've said many times, the Expanse is my favorite sci-fi series of all time, of any sci-fi series, book, TV, movie, whatever, doesn't matter. It's my favorite. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah,
I'm going to check this out.
I love hard sci-fi.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Have any of you ever read Peter F. Hamilton?
No. So you have
any of his work? Yeah.
This is the first time I've
heard
heard
of a series. I looked up. I was looking it up to make sure it was the right. I remembered the series I read, and the one I read was called the Void Trilogy. And he has been an extensive sci-fi writer for a long time. I mean, he wrote the Commonwealth Saga. He wrote the Void Trilogy, which was set in the Commonwealth Saga. He's written the Chronicles of the Fallers, which is on my list. The Queen of Dreams is his fantasy series. He has been writing for a long time. So they're taking an established author and putting him out there. And from what I remember, it's been a while since I read the book, the Void Trilogy, but I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed a lot of Peter F. Hamilton's books. And he always comes up, so much so that he always comes up on recommendations for, hey, have you read this one? Have you read this one? So I'm really familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, even if I don't like the game, I'm going to have to read the books.
Yeah. Sounds like a new author for me.
Yeah. I mean, this is my biggest worry is,
you
take what sounds like a great idea, hard sci-fi, relativistic speeds, science fiction set 43,000 years in the future, and you give it to Wizards of the Coast, who like to put a lot of Nerf bumpers on things.
Yeah. They don't like the hard.
Yeah.
Part.
No.
Like, oh, but players can't just have fun with this. It's like, well, I don't know. It depends on your players. I mean, my group loves adversity. We love a campaign where things are difficult. That's sort of the fun, because if you overcome something that's easy, that's nowhere near as rewarding as overcoming something that's hard.
I mean, look what they did to Gamma World. I mean, they made it so that you could literally mutate between turns. I mean, it was just all complete. They took all of the lore and the crunchiness of Gamma World, and they turned it into basically a card game of silliness.
So wait a minute. So Wizards is like the pool, and Gamma World originally was sort of like the beach. It had a lot of grit and everything. And you take all the the hot sun and the sand and the nasty salt water and stuff, and you make a pool out of it.
Yeah. So, But hey, at least it's not ripping off Mark Miller and Traveler. It does sound like it could be a pretty original, cool thing if they do it right.
Sweet. Well, that sounds excellent. That sounds.
I'd be curious. I'd be curious to see what the system is. Like, are they going to keep to a D20 system, or are they actually going to do something different? Like,
I mean,
they had that other TSR right there at the end. Had that other sci-fi alternative. Yeah, which was a different system. So,
yeah, but Wizards accountants are going to step in and say it's 5e.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? They'd be smart to do it because we're trying to, as we work on new things for Solarian Games, we're trying to stick with just Lucky 13, except in cases where it just doesn't work, in which case we have another one called Razor. But those two, we're not going to do other systems. We're going to try to always use the same. So it's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say much. We just wrote a sci-fi RPG with D20 system. So,
so there we go.
All right, let's go to the next story.
Let's get your next story. You're up.
All right. So Goodman Games takes on the Dark Tower. Wait a minute. Let me do this so people can see it.
Get some graphics up there.
Yeah. So there was an old module way back in the day, Dark Tower, and it was released by the
Judges Guild, right?
Judges Guild, right? Yeah. But I was reading up on this because honestly, I never actually played the Dark Tower, but a lot of the stuff that came out of the Judges Guild wasn't really recognized as being equal to TSR from what I was reading until Dark Tower. Dark Tower was kind of the first one, and in some cases it got like 9 out of 10 stars, and there were people who were like, yeah, this is as as good as it's equal to what TSR.
Well, and that's because it wasn't Bob Brinkman doing it; it was Janelle Jacquez.
Yeah,
they had a real heavy hitter in there for that one.
Okay, all right, that's cool.
That's a big difference. Yeah, there's a big difference between what Bob Brinkman could write and what Janelle could write.
All right. So this is a 3-book set. It's has a slipcase and everything. They're gonna remaster Dark Tower. And then if they do what Goodman Games normally does with these books, they'll probably have. Let's see. Hold on. I can actually just read this. The first book presents the dungeon as it was in 1979. Set in the town of Mitra's Fist with the 2 towers to explore. So they do that with all their products. They'll reprint the original as is. And then book 2 covers the remaster for DCC, Dungeon Crawl Classics, if any of you don't know that, highlighting design decisions and providing regional information. And then a 3rd book, which expands the setting with 3 new adventures and an additional free RPG Day preview adventure. So that's really cool. They did this with I have Barrier Peaks that they did. It was really cool. They added like another floor. It was neat.
Well, and actually, let me go back to the original one here. And Derek and Than, maybe you all can help me out with this if I'm right or wrong. Isn't this the one that that people refer to when they say you're Jacazing the dungeon?
Yes,
it is.
Anybody want to go ahead and give the explanation of that term?
What is that?
It is where
I can tell you. Okay.
It's where you have lots of twists and turns, lots of level changes, elevation changes. It's not just a grid. You follow the single path through the dungeon like Gary would write. It's much more twisty and turny. Yeah, it's
and there are multiple endings,
multiple entrances, multiple endings. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and she invented that basically. I mean, other people have done it since, but since then, people refer to it as Jacazing the dungeon. Although there was some guy who I don't remember his name, and I don't care to remember his name, that tried to take the name for himself, but that didn't work out.
Yes.
People pushed back on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. My copies were given to me by Bob Brinkman at GaryCon because I did the memorial service for Janelle.
Okay.
When she passed away, we had a memorial service at GaryCon for Janelle, and we wanted to honor her and her contributions to the copy. And so Bob Brinkman gave me a copy, and I've had it since then. And all I can say is that Goodman Games puts out. It's a part of their original Adventures Reincarnated series. It is in that, you know, how they redid Keep on the Borderlands and all of those. So it is a part of that. And I will say, I have the others. They've always done an excellent job. And I know that Bob was working very closely with Janelle on them.
Mm-hmm.
So Janelle had a lot of input into this. And for me, that's what sold it to me.
Yeah.
That is what I love it. It's gorgeous, well made. The slipcover's great, artwork's great. Their reproduction values of the old material, excellent. And
they always are good. They're so good at this.
Of course, I'm biased because it was a gift, but I've always been biased about the quality of Goodman Games stuff. Their stuff is good.
Yeah.
Sturdy, well made, all of that.
Well, and they did. So Derek's got the DCC version. I've got the 5e version because they're releasing both versions, and the quality on the 5e is obviously great. It's just as good as well. They also did I don't know if you can still get it on Goodman Games site, but there was I guess a charity, a tribute adventure that was something that Janelle had been working on. And they put that out in honor of her, and it goes with Dark Tower. So I think you can at least get the PDF of it still, and I think some of the proceeds went to offset some of her costs as well. But
very good.
Yeah. It's very well done.
Okay, can't wait to check this one out.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the third story of the day, and that is. This one is a little bit of a half story. Richard Garriott considers a tabletop version of Ultima. You want to bring up the Ultima graphic there, Peter, for everybody to see? And I'll describe this for the podcast listeners that are listening on audio tomorrow. And it is not the one I thought you were going to bring up, but it's pretty cool.
Well, you have the other one. Yeah, it was like a book cover or something.
Yeah, it was the first one. I just wanted to bring up the very first Ultima one because it's just my kind of art. But
I think I could do that. I think I could do that.
Well, I'll talk about it in the meantime. Yeah. So, Richard Garriott, a lot of people know him as Lord British, and he is the creator of Ultima, going all the way back to before it was called Ultima. It was originally called Alakabeth, if I'm pronouncing it right. I'm probably not. Basically, one of the originators of computer role-playing games. I think the only ones that were before were very simple, kind of go north, go south, go east, go west. You know, you pick up a sword kind of things like Beneath Apple Manor or Adventure, Colossal Cave, those kind of things. Ultima was the first one that actually had basically role-playing in it, where you could actually play a character and okay, it might not have been the very first one. Emon was happening at the same time, but the point is he's one of the progenitors of everything. So recently he was talking on Twitter with some folks, and they brought up what's going on here. You're going to cover up my notes so I can't read them?
Oh, sorry. Well, sorry. My bad. I'm showing it on this. I was showing it on the screen. It's the only way I had it right now because I haven't downloaded it or anything.
Okay, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and take it off the screen. This is how professional we are, folks.
What? I wasn't prepared for this.
All right, get that off the screen.
I'm working on it. There you go. It's off the screen.
Oh, gee. Okay. Well, anyways, it doesn't matter. It's a classic franchise. It's existed all the way through into modern times to the Ultima MMORPG. And all kinds of things like that. So he has been talking about, maybe I'd like to make this as a TTRPG. If he did, some of the things that could be really cool about this are that Ultima did a lot of things that, as a game that others hadn't done. It would be very interesting as a tabletop. For example, it's a classless game, skill-based, which nowadays we have a lot of those, but as a fantasy game, that's not as common. And again, he was one of the first. And one of the things that was really cool in Ultima was a core mechanic called the virtue system, where this is the 1970s. and you're playing computer role-playing games, and everybody's kill that guy, slay that thing, do the death.
Kill. Right.
And in his, you actually had to make moral choices in the game, and that affected how well you did. I would love to see somebody do that in a TTRPG.
Well, actually, there was a Jason. It's old though. There's a game called Fringeworthy. You got way more experience points for doing good stuff than you did for doing bad stuff. You could actually lose points for doing bad stuff.
Fringeworthy.
Yeah, you were supposed to be good guys.
Computer or tabletop?
Oh, it's a tabletop game. It's old. Really? It's the oldest role-playing game you've never heard of.
No, I've never heard of it. It must be old.
It's very old. It's like, but I mean, it was around for years. It's still kind of around.
We got to look that up.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was very, very crunchy.
Yeah, so all that could be very interesting. Of course, the thing is, Ultima itself, the IP is owned by Electronic Arts right now. So, I mean, if anybody's going to get the okay to do it, I suppose it would be Richard Garriott. But maybe he won't. But then again, maybe he doesn't have to. I mean, I don't think that he has to call it Ultima. He could call it Alcabeth. Greg Stafford couldn't do RuneQuest anymore, so he went to HeroQuest, right? So, he can call it something else. Is he actually going to do something, or is he just talking out loud? We'll find out. But I would love it if it happened.
I do. When you said that, the first thing I thought was Virtues. Like that was so interesting to me. I didn't get into Ultima until I think Exodus, which is 4, maybe.
Oh, Exodus again.
Exodus again, right? But that was the first thing I thought about because it really did. I mean, you could swing villain in that game very quickly. But you paid. That was the other one. I feel like that was one of the first ones where you could, like, if you robbed somebody's chest, you're going to get chased by the local law enforcement or something like there were real consequences in those games, which is pretty cool. So
it's interesting. It's a much different take than having an alignment system.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I like that better myself, of course. But I do know some people that use the virtues in Ultima and added it to Fudge, if you remember the Fudge rule system.
Yep.
So there are people who have taken the virtues from Ultima and plugged them into TTRPG systems. And I like that. I did a very, very slimmed down version of that for what we call motivations in our game. I based it off of virtues. Yeah,
we'll have to, Sam and Derek, we'll have to get you guys for a game of Top Secret sometime, campaign based, because we have a reputation mechanic that we use. So it's not just about being good or bad; it's also about being effective.
Right.
And we have a basic reputation mechanic as well too. So
cool! I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we only got one story before we get to hear about it. So, Peter, take us through Blades.
All right, so Blades of Glory, or no, Glory. Listen to me, Blades of Glory, Blades 68, a groovy. The word I was going for was groovy, a groovy spy thriller. So, Blade. This is a it's not its own game. As I was looking through it, it's actually a supplement based on the game Blades in the Dark, and it's a supplement that takes place. I believe it's about 100 years later, because I think the other one's 1860s or something like that, the Victorian era. And this one is basically 100 years later, but set in that same world, because it's an alternate Earth. It's a place called Industrial World of Doskvol. And it's kind of a steampunky world, but then you go 100 years later to you're in 1968, and it's the future of that. Apparently there's supposed to be like time travel and stuff, which is supposed to encourage you to be able to jump back and forth if you want to use some of the same adventures. Sounds really, really quite interesting. It's by Tim Dene and is published by Evil Hat Productions. The playtest is already out on Drive-Thru if you want to check it out.
Yeah, it sounds great.
I have not played Blades in the Dark yet.
No, I have not played Blades in the Dark.
See, I just started playing in a Blades in the Dark game with a friend, on Tuesday nights about 3 weeks ago. And then this announcement came out. And Blades in the Dark it is steampunky, but it's not steampunky like you would think.
Okay.
Everything is run by electroplasm, which is ghost ectoplasm.
Okay.
So there's lots of ghosts in the game, things like that. And from what I understand, Blades 68, baby, you could be an Austin Powers ghost hunter, baby. And I would just I would freaking love that. It is a fun system. It is very narrative based, so it's not. While it has mechanics, all your mechanics, you don't roll for stats or anything like that. You choose what you want. It uses playbooks like some other games do, so it's very narrative focused. So if you're really into crunchy games that have lots of dots in it, you're not going to probably kick for this a lot, but it's really good if you want to do fun crunchy stuff. You're in Blades in the Dark, you're encouraged to put together your own little crime group, your own little crime syndicate, and you work for other groups, you get jobs. It's a great game, and I will be really interested to see how they translate the ghostly flavor into the 68 version.
I can see right through you, baby. Yeah. But yeah,
well, hey,
what's
let's
interesting
take that into our main story now.
Hold on, just real quick. What's interesting about that is the fact that we just went from talking about a virtue system to a game of playing criminals, where you're supposed to start out. You are bad guys. So that's kind of interesting.
Well, it deals, but in Blades in the Dark, it deals with vices. Okay. So those are the flip side of each other. For those of us from any theological tradition that it has been influenced by the Roman Catholic Church, you have virtues and vices, and the vices are also what are referred to as the 7 deadly sins. So you have 7 virtues: fortitude, prudence, temperance, and justice, and then the 3 theological virtues: faith, hope, and love. And then the flip side of that are the 7 vices, or the 7 deadly sins, which we all know from Shazam, right? We all learned the 7 deadly sins from the
Shazam
from
7
comics in the 70s and 80s. Oh, yes. There you go. From 7. Yes. I loved 7. It was a great anime. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So when you talk about vices and you talk about evil, you got to have the flip side of virtue. And that's why I'm not really big into totally dark games that have no light. And I'm not into light games that have no dark. You gotta have conflict. You need to have both there for it to be fun.
Right. Yeah, I agree. You have to have challenges.
Well, that's awesome.
All right.
Now we'll go.
Uh-oh. Now Jason's freezing.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw him freeze up. Everybody else is here though, right?
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, Van's here.
This has happened once before. So if you're watching, just hang tight. Jason will be back. Even if he has to drop out and come back in. In the meantime, though, so we've got Darkspace, and what actually brought this up was Jason had found Void Echoes. And actually, I don't know. He brought this to me, so I'm not really sure exactly. Was he talking to you guys first and decided to do this, or did he see it somewhere?
I sent it to him because I've known Jason for a long time. I've known Jason. I don't even want to say how long I've known Jason. I think since Gary Con 2 probably is what.
Yeah, he's spoken highly of you.
2 or 3. Well, I think a lot of him. He's a really great guy, and we enjoy when we're able to be at a convention together. We always enjoy hanging out and everything. And I was telling him a little bit about Darkspace while we were at Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, and I was running a play test, which we'll get into. Hopefully he'll be back soon. But I was running the adventure, which is in the zine, which we're putting into the zine. I was running that at Page. There he is. He's back.
Yay.
I was telling them how we met, Jason, how long I've known you. I think it was Gary Con 2, wasn't it?
Was it Gary Con 2 or was it the Gen Con before that?
It could have been either one.
Yeah, it was around that.
Yeah, that's been a long time, man. We've slept since then, and we've had lots of drinks since then.
Yes.
Yes. So Darkspace is part of the new wave of gaming, as it were. Right? This is the same as the oh shit! Why do I keep screwing his name up? Kelsey's book, right?
Shadow Dark.
Shadow Dark, right?
Yes.
Sorry, this is part of the Shadow Dark series, right? I don't know why I keep screwing that up. Anyway,
on the screen, Peter.
Oh, there it is, down at the bottom. I see it. I do see it. That's all I had to do was read.
There you go.
At any rate, so did you reach out to Kelsey early on? Like, how did this come about?
Yeah. So Derek and I have both known Kelsey for a while. So I've talked to Kelsey in the past about doing some Shadow Dark stuff, but really, honestly, the brainchild of this was Derek's. We talked a while back about wanting to do something together, and you got the idea about doing sci-fi, and we kind of pitched some ideas back and forth, and I was at the time kind of wrapped up in some other stuff, and so Derek, you go from here. You kind of started the initial
to be honest,
background on it.
I like to try and tap into the cultural zeitgeist, and I knew I was getting burnt out on fantasy because I've been playing fantasy for most of my tabletop gaming life, and it's just fantasies everywhere. And I was like, man, I want to play some sci-fi, but I don't want something crunchy. I don't want something with a lot of heavy crunch. And while I love Traveler, it's a lot of crunch. And
Yes, it is.
I looked at I wanted something that I already knew the rule system to. And I've shared this story before, but because of Than, I found out about Shadow Dark before it released. And Than ran me through Kelsey Dion's quick start before she released her books, which were immensely successful. And I was like, wow, this is the rule system I've been looking for. It's D20 light. It's really quick. It's really easy. You could be up and playing and running an adventure and rolling and having brand new characters in 15 to 20 minutes. Awesome. Fast. Great. And I said, man, that's great. So when I started getting this sci-fi bug, and I thought to myself, we're going to really start seeing a cultural shift toward more science fiction in tabletop games. I told Thad about it, and so we just started going back and forth. And I was struggling with trying to transfer their classes into a sci-fi system, because classes are the hallmark of any system that counts D&D as its father or grandfather. And so I was trying to do it, and it just wasn't working. And that's when, and I was talking to Than about that, and Than said, I got you, man. And so Than, I'm going to throw it back over to you and let you tell them what you did, which I think has transformed the way we're handling this without having a real class-based system, while still being a system that almost has classes.
Yeah.
I mean, it works wonderfully. And so you go with it.
Yeah. So basically, as we're kind of throwing this back and forth, I said, well, the only time I've seen a D20 system that didn't have anything that looked like it was still a class, but wasn't fighter, cleric, thief, those kinds of things, was D20 Modern, which is now Everyday Heroes. And it used archetypes that were based on the attributes, the 6 stats. So I was like, well, let's try that. Let's build out something along those lines where you've still got your simple little Shadow Dark classes, but they're not tied to a profession. If you think about, I mean, it's kind of odd to think about, fighter as a profession, but it is, right? That's how they make their money. But we're talking more about what kind of character are they instead. And then, but when we kind of started pulling all that together, I was like, okay, this is good, but it's a little It's a little flat. And that was always one of my kind of hang-ups with D20 Modern was a strong character is a strong character is a strong character. It doesn't have variety at the end of the day. You've genericized it too much.
Oh,
so
it's too balanced.
It's exactly. So I said, okay, well, what else can we do here? And in Shadow Dark, Kelsey made backgrounds. Backgrounds are very simple mechanic. It's just what did you know before you became a crawler? And if you run into a situation with that, you get advantage on that roll that's with that. So I said, what if we take that and we make those the professions instead? So now you've got an archetype tied next to we still use background, but basically an occupation, right? So you can be a strong soldier or a quick soldier or a clever soldier, and those are all very different things. You've got six. We technically have a seventh. We'll talk about that, but you have 6 archetypes. You have, in our book, you have 20 backgrounds, but really you can make a background out of anything. It's just one word and you describe it a little bit. But 6 archetypes, 20 backgrounds. You have suddenly a multiverse of options, especially when you then add in our species. So
hang on a second. I want to catch up with you here.
Yeah.
So the archetypes, you said strong, swift, something else.
Strong. Yeah. So yeah, the archetypes are strong, quick, tough, clever, wise, and charming.
Okay.
And then we have a 7th one, which is our android.
You got 6 Smurfs.
Got 6. Yeah, exactly. You do, right?
But you know what?
But every Smurf is different.
Yeah.
But it does make sense in that when you're saying somebody's archetype is clever, right? It means that that's how they approach every problem. If they run into an obstacle, their initial thing to do and everything they've geared their life around is to be clever around problems. Mm-hmm. Whereas the strong, if you're a strong guy, you bash through things. Right. That's Reacher, right?
Yeah,
he's the strong type.
Exactly. Yeah.
If he can't punch his way out of it, he asks someone for help.
Yeah. So you've got those 7, and then the backgrounds. You said that there's 20 to begin with, and you could add your own.
Yeah, I mean, we have a table. It's very similar to the. Okay, so we've got we've got scientist is
Street
one,
rat.
street rat is one, medic is one. We have the celebrity. We have it's things like that, right?
Cool.
Academic. We have academics and scientists.
Acolyte
for the yep. So again, and acolyte can go a lot of different ways, right? Depending on, and this is the next kind of piece of this that we're going to get into, a little bit, but depending on what kind of sci-fi you want to run, an acolyte means something very different. Like if you're running, hard sci-fi, this might be a religion, this might be a cult, this might be somebody that decided they were going to worship a moon rock, right? It could be a lot of things. Or if you swing the complete other way and go space opera, then we're talking Jedi, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that we're trying to do with this is to give you all of those options and not tie us into one genre. Yeah.
Help us kind of understand the feel of the game. So now we have some of the basic mechanics around it. Forgetting what you actually do, how do you feel when you're playing it?
Well, I think a lot of people. So Derek has run at conventions. I've run for my family, our gaming group. I taught a bunch of high schoolers. They always come away from it being excited, having fun, right? Mm-hmm. It's because you're getting to do these things you see in sci-fi without having to check a table, check a chart. It's very cinematic. It's very quick. It keeps the table running.
Yeah.
Because you're using Shadow Dark. If you've played Shadow Dark, that's that kind of same thing, where it's like you have one action, one movement, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get into a lot of action economy, anything like that. So
Right.
you do your thing, you move on, and that's the idea with it. Is it's light, it's elegant, it's simple.
Nice. So, well, do you want to tell us any more about? Because I want to ask about the zine. Because this is what you're doing the Kickstarter for. But is there anything else you want to tell about the game before we go over to that?
So a couple of other things that we've got in there to add to your characters. You've got species. So that was one of the things that we tried to figure out. It's like, okay, well, how do we do this? At first, we were like, okay, well, let's just make up our own like 6 or 7 species. And they were like, but if we're gonna go big and just say, hey, these are rules you can play sci-fi with, we can't limit ourselves to 6 or 7. And so what we did was basically, in Shadowdark, your ancestry, you have one ancestry trait, right? So if you're an elf, you have keen senses. If you're a halfling, you're stealthy, right? So we just took a bunch of those, and we've got a table of 20, so you can roll randomly or you can pick one. And there are things like amphibious or armored skin or natural weapons or things like that. And so then you just make you can make your alien race. If you're using this to run a specific setting, so like I do with my kids, I use this to run Star Wars. So if you want to run a Wookiee, then you're going to have like the natural claws or something like that, or maybe our tech savvy one. But then if you're wanting to play something like the let's see what's another good Star Wars race, like the pig guys that work for Jabba the Hutt, right? So they're gonna be more thick hide, so maybe they've got armored skin instead. You just pick one and say, this is what I'm playing and this is my one trait, and then you go. So you just make something up.
So does that mean Darkspace?
The game I've been running. No, go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to ask, does that mean that Darkspace does not have a predetermined setting?
It does. Right now, it does not. The closest we have to a predetermined setting is what we've got in the zine, because that's our first official adventure.
My games are generally set in a very different type of setting because I wanted something a little more gritty, a little more expanse-like. So my games are set in our solar system. Copyright, I don't have to worry about, but it's our solar system, like in the 26th century. And so instead of the species being alien races, for me, the species are mutations. Because humanity is mutated because we've screwed up the earth so bad you had to mutate to survive, and because people did genetic splicing, and I've worked on all of that in the backstory of my campaign, which I've been running with my group at where I run my group locally. And so with that, and that's one of the things that Than and I wanted to do, is we wanted to say this, you're able to put together your own setting. And one of the really nice things that I like as both a player and a game master is that you could sit down and you could say, okay, we're going to roll randomly for the species here. And then you and your GM can now make up that species for your setting so that the GM can create their own setting over that in collaboration with the players, because I'm really big on collaborative storytelling. That's the fun part, is the give and take. In fact, when I was running this, it was so funny. I was running this for a young kid who's in his 20s, been playing RPGs since he was in his late teens. And he said, Derek, you don't sound like a game master. You sound more like a referee. And I said, that's the original term they used. When D&D first started out, there was no dungeon master. You were the referee. And that's the idea I want to get back to, is that I'm not trying to master you in the game. I'm here to help us weave a story together. And so I encourage my players to say, okay, you want a reptiloid creature? That's great. Help me tell the backstory of your home world, Usul.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Right.
Tell me the story of your homeworld, Usul. No one.
So, all right.
You don't get that reference?
No.
Dune. That's from Dune.
Oh.
That's from Dune. Tell me the story of your homeworld, Usul. Oh my.
All right. So
Oh,
let's go to the zine. Let's go to the
man,
setting
my
that you.
heart's breaking over here.
Oh, you'll be all right.
Here, hold on. I'm going to pull up the
Breaks my
Kickstarter.
heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's pull up the Kickstarter. Let's talk a little bit about this zine and the setting that you have in here. And 'cause I've backed your Kickstarter, so I need to find out what it is I just backed.
You're one of the 62, right?
Yes, I am. In fact, it's been going up fast.
Yeah.
It's been going up
Yeah,
fast.
just saw the number change.
Yeah, it was we just started it yesterday, and we're already over 300%. So it's been really great. So the zine has two parts to it. We wanted to take this first zine and make it sort of an intro, right? So the first half of it, you get your species, you get your backgrounds, you get your motivations, which we haven't talked about, but we need to, because that's Derek's baby. But you get those just as an explanation for what they are. But then we give you 4 pre-generated characters. So the idea is this: you get the zine, you got your 4 characters, and then there's an adventure at the back. And the adventure is all Derek. So I put together all the rules and kind of got all that fleshed out. And then Derek wrote the root of the problem, which is the adventure. So I'll let you talk about that, Derek.
Yeah, well, the root of the problem is that a derelict city ship, if you will, or colony ship, comes back into the system, and it's my homage to Jim Ward. Jim Ward did the Starship Warden, Jim Ward did Gamma World. He did Metamorphosis Alpha, all of those things from the early days. And I knew Jim through Gary Kahn and my years of working with Gary Kahn. But because I was working with Gary Kahn, I never got to play in a Jim Ward game. But I always loved the products he did. They were always fun to read. And so I said, I want to do this as an homage to Jim. And so the ship that comes back is called the War Done, 2 words, WARDONE, because Earth, or whatever planet you want to have it from, was just being destroyed by humanity's gluttony and greed. And so they created this ship to go out into the stars and try and colonize other worlds. Well, now the ship has come back into the solar system for some strange reason that is unknown. And you are a group of space scavengers that won a system-wide lottery to go in and salvage the ship, because so many scavengers wanted to get it. They said, you know what? We're going to have a lottery, and the winners of this lottery are the ones that get first shot at the ship. And this group, the deck they get is the Agra deck, the deck on the ship that was meant to go out and help seed a new world with agriculture and all the mysteries and cool things they find on the deck. So in a lot of ways, it is a dungeon crawl in space, but with a lot of sci-fi elements and a lot of the hazards you would have being on a spaceship that is unknown, that is over a century old, and you don't know what has happened to it while it's been out in space for all that time. You don't know what's on it. You don't know what you're going to find.
Yeah.
And I just wrote that adventure. I ran the adventure first for my own gaming group. Then I started codifying it more. I ran it at some conventions last year. And then Dan and I really got into breaking the rules down as we were getting ready to put out this zine for Zine Quest. And then I ran it some more. I ran it at Gamehole Con. And then after doing some more work on the rules, I just ran it at Page. And so there's a few more things I want to add to it. And if we get enough backers, I may expand the adventure some, because Dan gave me a nice map, which helped visualize it better. And so there's good visualizations there. I have ideas that we could really expand this adventure on. And I just love it. I love it. I have had people enjoy it. They seem to like it. The only critiques I got were early on asking me, saying, "Hey, we need to clarify some rules," and that's when I sent it over to Dan, and Dan's like, "I got you, bro. I got you, bro." And Dan just really helped out a lot on that. And so without Dan, I couldn't do this, because Dan has really helped me with the rules clarifications, because my first D&D was the Moldved Cook D&D. So I'm very freeform, freewheeling, improvisational DM. And so Dan was able to help me give rules for people who need a little bit more structure than that.
Okay.
Just
Now
a little
this
bit
is
more.
this is number 1. So
Yes,
are you going to be doing these on a regular basis?
Yeah, we are. Obviously, with Zine Quest, this is part of Zine Quest, so we'll definitely try to do one at least with Zine Quest. But we've got some ideas for others. We've actually had some folks in our community say, "Hey, you should do a zine around this," because again, it kind of gets to that idea you're kind of asking about, like, is there a one setting for Darkspace? So we might be able to explore those in the zines instead.
Mhm.
So we've got a few ideas. Yeah.
So is Zine Quest, is that the thing when James made Anarchy and you had started on Boombox? Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's the thing that I started Boombox on 2 years ago, and I haven't touched it. Yep.
And then James released the tiniest role-playing book I've ever seen.
Yes, the pocket RPG. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is great. So really encourage people to get out there and back this. It looks like it's very affordable. It's $6 zine, and beautiful artwork.
$2 just for the PDF, man. You just
but you got to get the physical zine.
You
tell them
2 and 6. Look at that.
Yeah. Now, come on, people, buy the physical zine. It's worth it.
Yeah, and they can get if they like it, they can get the full core rules on our website, or they can get it on DriveThruRPG as well.
Well, you got to stick
And
those
it's
core rules in the add-ons at the end as well. Make it so
It is.
Well,
It is.
It already is.
Yep. You actually can get it at a slight discount
in the backer kit afterwards.
Well, you can choose it as you go through, but you'll be able to add it in the backer kit as well.
Okay, because I didn't see it as I went through. I just pledged for the physical copy.
option.
I didn't see the Darkspace option.
Yeah, it should pop up.
Yeah, but it'll be in the backer kit as well.
But
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And
great.
the good thing is if you buy the rules through the Kickstarter, of course we would prefer you buy them through the website. But if you buy it through that, as soon as the Kickstarter ends, you will get the core rules. But if you want the core rules now, you can go to the website and get the core rules. They're $12. We've already revised them. Than has put some amazing artwork in there. I don't know if you know this, but Than's also an artist. And so Than's put his own art.
Yeah, the cover art for Void Echoes.
Just to let you know about my relationship. Yeah, he did the cover art. So, but we're also looking to hire artists as well. We're in talks with some right now. But Than, I have just known Than for a long time. I love him so much that when I interviewed Larry Elmore for my documentary, I took Than with me. I just called him up. I said, "We're about to go spend a day with Larry Elmore. Would you like to go spend a day with Larry Elmore with me?" And Than was like, "Let me think about it. What the hell are you talking about? Of course I'm going to go spend a day with Larry Elmore." And so Than and I just went and spent a day with Larry.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was
which was
amazing. Yeah,
but
definitely go grab Darkspace. We're really excited. We've had a lot of great folks already that are picking it up. It seems that we've kind of hit something that was a little lacking there, which was rules light sci-fi. So lots of folks are really excited about it. We're about to get print on demand going as well, so you'll be able to get a physical copy soon. And then we're going to do an expanded rules version probably sometime mid-year. Right now, this is just core mechanics. We're going to add in the GM section, those kinds of things as well. So
that's great. So thank you, and tell everybody where they can go to find Darkspace.
Yep. So dmingtheworld.com/darkspace.
All right. Well, thanks both of you for coming on today.
Yeah,
really
absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having us
and giving us all this insight into this cool new way to play Shadow Dark in space.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks. Oh, look at that. We got people in the chat room already saying they've got it in pledge. So
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
everybody in the chat room. Thanks to everybody who's listening, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.